Here's a little example of DeSantis kind of taking control. He did it a couple times during the debate. SOT 10.
You voted
he has
for
made sure that the
you
borders are
actually
open
asked
and they
for a
haven't done
gas tax
anything. Look at
increase in
everything
South Carolina.
12 years. Where have you been? Where
I voted no on all.
Tim?
I voted on most of those things.
We've waited,
I have voted
and nothing has
Here,
happened.
here's what you've
12
done.
years.
Here's the thing that I just find interesting.
Ron, let me finish
All
this
these
first.
guys have said
Here's the
things,
fact.
and I appreciate a lot of the things they're saying.
Nikki
I'm
Haley.
the only one up here who's gotten in the big fights and has delivered big victories for the people of Florida. And that's what it's all about. You can always talk, but when it gets hot in there, when they're shooting arrows at you, are you going to be stand up for parents' rights, to keep the state free? Are you going to be able to do all those things? And in the state of Florida, because of our success, the Democratic Party lies in ruins.
That was a strong moment, Duncan. He did well there.
It was great. It was great because you had Nikki and Tim talking about the cost of drapes and the gas tax and just going back and forth, that food fight we were talking about. It seemed like such small ball. And then, DeSantis has the opening to come in and be like, okay, well, all of you guys are just talking. Let me tell you what I did. And you get back to those conservative accomplishments he's accomplished in Florida, which, of course, is one of the main selling points of his candidacy. And I also agree with Eliana, like when he gets an opportunity to interject with that stuff, it comes off more authentic than as part of like this scripted 30-second stump. And I just think he shows more authentic, natural emotion in those moments. And he had another really great one, I thought, on the issue of life, where he was able to weave in Donald Trump not being here, not defending the pro-life movement, supporting the pro-life movement with what he's done in Florida with the heartbeat bill, and talking about... We
actually have that, Michael. Let's play it. It's SOT 11.
Governor DeSantis, how are you going to win over independent pro-choice voters in Arizona?
Same way we did in Florida. We won the greatest Republican victory in a governor's race in the history of the state. And I reject this idea that pro-lifers are to blame for midterm defeats. I think there's other reasons for that. The former president, he's missing in action tonight. He's had a lot to say about that. He should be here explaining his comments to try to say that pro-life protections are somehow a terrible thing.
Keep going.
Yeah, so, he managed to take what was supposed to be a difficult question about a vulnerability that he has in a general election, and he flipped it around and not only talked about his electability in Florida, and he also then attacked Donald Trump on the issue and turned it into a positive. So he managed to do a little pirouette out of that question and put Donald Trump, and I think, in a difficult spot on the issue when it comes to evangelical voters in Iowa, right?
Who gives two shits about the drapes at the UN ambassador's apartment, which is what Tim Scott was coming at Nikki Haley on, that they paid $50,000 for the automated shades in your UN place, which we know from when the New York Times did this hit piece on her was actually not on Nikki Haley. For whatever it's worth, they had to retract it. That was something that the Obama administration ordered and paid for to upgrade the UN ambassador's place that she stays. And then Trump won and she took office. It wasn't even on her, but this is how they chose to spend their time last night. This is the more of that drapes exchange that Ron DeSantis interrupted to sort of say, can we talk about my record here? Watch.
Talk about someone who has never seen a federal dollar she doesn't like. 10 cents on the gallon in South Carolina. As the UN ambassador, you literally put $50,000 on curtains in a $15 million subsidized location. Next.
You got bad information. First of all, I fought the gas tax in South Carolina multiple times against the establishment.
Just go to YouTube.
Secondly, on the curtains, do your homework, Tim, because Obama bought those curtains.
Did you send them back?
It's in the press.
Did you send them back?
It's the State Department.
Did you send them back?
Did you send them back? You're the one that works in Congress.
Oh my gosh.
You get it
You
done.
hung them on your curtains.
They were there before I even showed up at the residence. You are scrapping. You are scrapping.
I'm not scrapping.
Oh my God. Did you send back? What sane person who's moving into the UN residence would say, take the automated curtain shades down and send it? They're not returnable. Anybody who's ever had those put in their house knows you're stuck with it. That was an absurd. I'm sure there's plenty you can go after Nikki Haley on. even if you're Tim Scott and you share a lot of the policy positions that she does. But the curtains, Eliana?
Look, I'm surprised that question didn't come from the Univision moderator.
Same.
But that hit was beneath Tim Scott. And I thought that exchange between Nikki Haley and Tim Scott was the low moment of the debate for both of them. Nikki Haley appointed Tim Scott to the Senate. And so I was surprised not to hear Tim Scott say every time Nikki Haley hit him, "You appointed me." And I was surprised not to hear Nikki Haley hit back harder on him for being in hoc with the New York Times' incorrect, false reporting. I thought she could have gone further on that and said he's picking up their fake news that they retracted. They removed her picture from that article. They issued an editor's note. They changed the text of that piece. And had to run away with their tail between their legs after publishing that piece. I thought she could have gone a bit further on that. And back to DeSantis's response on life in the midterms, I thought it was masterful. And when he said Donald Trump owes an explanation to people, he said, pro-lifers aren't to blame for the midterm losses. I thought he could have gone a little bit further on that too and said, by the way, it was candidates Donald Trump endorsed in the midterms. It was Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania who lost. It was Blake Masters in Arizona who lost in 2022. It was 2 senators in Georgia who lost in 2020 when he was crying over spilled milk. If you want to talk about Republican electoral losses, look no further than Donald Trump. If you want to talk about victories, look to Florida. And I think we need to hear a little bit more of that from DeSantis. He could have carried the point a little bit further.
Michael, there was a moment where the Univision anchor, Calderon, again, came at the candidates from the left. And this one was for DeSantis on the dumbass debunked slavery nonsense, that they're teaching slavery was a good thing down in Florida, which is a lie. He's teaching the exact same thing that they put in the African-American AP history class that the Democrats pushed, and nobody down in Florida said anything about it. They had no problem with it. Only when it wound up at a lower level, K through 12, where they said, some of the slaves were very resilient and developed some skills, that suddenly the left freaked out. And all the agenda was put together by African-American historians along with others in any event. So at this point, you saw Tim Scott come at Nikki Haley from the left with a leftist lie from the Times. And she tried to debunk it, but I agree with Eliana. She could have been much more effective with, what are you doing? You're repeating a New York Times lie that was retracted. Ron DeSantis had it happen to him from the Univision anchor and handled it very effectively. Here's what happened.
Florida's new Black History curriculum says, quote, slaves develop skills which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. You have said slaves develop skills in spite of slavery, not because of it. But many are still hurt. For descendants of slaves, this is personal. What is your message to them?
So first of all, that's a hoax that was perpetrated by Kamala Harris. We are not going to be doing that. Second of all, that was written by descendants of slaves. These are great Black history scholars. So we need to stop playing these games. Here's the deal. Our country's education system is in decline because it's focused on indoctrination, denying parents' rights. Florida represents the revival of American education. We didn't just talk about universal school choice. We enacted universal school choice. We didn't just talk about Parents' Bill of Rights. We enacted the Parents' Bill of Rights. We eliminated critical race theory. Florida is showing how it's done. We're standing with parents, and our kids are benefiting.
And then Tim Scott got all over him. You could hear him on the side going, take the line out, take the line out. It's literally one line about how some of the slaves, you heard her repeat it.
Again, small ball, right? This is always with Tim Scott. It's about the drapes. It's about the one line. But he's been embracing this sort of like left-wing mainstream media attack on his opponents, both with Nikki Haley and DeSantis. I don't get the strategy, really, because it seems like small ball to me.
How does this move any voters whatsoever? But I will say this, Ron DeSantis is getting better. He's definitely getting better. You saw a marked improvement from debate 1 to debate 2. And this is one of the reasons why it might serve Trump well. We can debate it all day long to show up at these things because you do get better once you practice. You get a little bit more agile. You see what works.
He gets better in this situation, I think, in particular, Megyn, where he's facing these adversarial questions sort of from the left, from the Univision reporter, because you got to remember, this guy he came on the national scene answering questions from left-wing reporters and mainstream reporters at press conferences in Florida, right? So like he is used, I think, more than most of those people on stage, used to the framing that they use to try to box him into a corner. And he always was able to fight his way out. It's his most authentic stuff.
Negative dings on credit reports happen to all sorts of people from all sorts of socioeconomic backgrounds. Understanding the credit landscape can be extremely tough, and spending the time to dispute and repair these so-called dings can be a full-time job. Good luck to you if you already have one of those, or you have kids, or you have any sort of a life. For starters, you have to deal with 3 separate credit bureaus. It's a massive headache, and it's unpleasant. It's also a common misconception that people with poor credit scores are just people who just don't pay their credit card bills. These can be hardworking middle-class people who are negatively affected by divorce, identity theft, medical debt, student loans. But if you do not address negative credit items, they can haunt you for years and years to come. And when it counts the most, like getting a mortgage at a competitive rate. And we know that being relegated to the status of a renter versus homeowner is a huge obstacle people face in trying to move their family up in economic class over the course of their lifetime. The good news is that our new sponsor, Lexington Law, can help you if you're in this position. Go to lexingtonlaw.com. Start today with a free consultation and review. Tell them Megyn sent you at lexingtonlaw.com. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.